and welcome to Mad's Tea Party, the channel run by a girl who does not drink tea. My name is Madison, and today I'm talking about why Harmonious is my favorite nighttime show at Disney World right now. Not like it has much competition, but it's good. So back in 2019, when Illuminations played its final performance, the public in general was very outraged. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but generally the Disney community was not happy that Illuminations was closing. That's what I'm trying to say. And I personally didn't really care. I was never one of those people that really loved Illuminations like others did. So I didn't really mind that it was closing, and I was fine to let something else take its place. My thing about Illuminations was the music was always the best part of it. And I could just listen to that soundtrack on repeat forever and ever without actually seeing the show. Because let's face it, half of it was looking at a globe in the middle of the lake, and it was boring. But the score, that was some good stuff. So while the rest of the Disney Parks fan community rioted, I was looking forward to the future, and I was really hoping that Harmonious was going to be everything Disney said it was going to be. In between Illuminations ending and Harmonious starting, we got Epcot Forever, which was, again, really cute. Definitely a filler show, but of course they played some classic Epcot tunes, so honestly, who could dislike it? Let's be real. But overall, it was just okay. Like, even though I love all of the classic Epcot music that they included in Epcot Forever, I can still say with certainty that it was the worst of the three, just because it was meant to be a filler show. But then Harmonious comes out, very delayed because of the pandemic, but it came out and I was there on night one. And honestly, I was kind of blown away. I didn't really go in with any set expectations. I was just hoping that it would be more visually entertaining than Illuminations was. And honestly, I'm not sure that it is, because there's a lot less fireworks and generally the animation is cool, but it's not enough to keep you engaged. With that said, the music is so good that it makes it all worth it. I know a lot of people will complain that this is Disney trying to push diversity, but I think it's great. It's a good show and I enjoy it. Are the barges worth it? Probably not. They probably could have done the show without them and it wouldn't have really changed much. If they had just had maybe 2 barges or the center ring and that's it, it would have been basically the same show. So I don't think that they needed 4 barges and a ring in World Showcase at all times. So for the barge haters, I'm with you. But the show's good and I will not disrespect it because of the barges. The barges are disrespectful, but the show is good, and I'm judging them as 2 different things. This one is a bit less easy to see from a good angle because Illuminations you can see really from anywhere, but Harmonious you kind of have to be dead center to be able to see it to its full effect. You can still see it from anywhere around the lagoon, but you have to be a bit more selective of where you stand if you want the visuals. If you don't really care and you're just in it for the vibes, I agree with you and fair. I saw the show with my roommate Amanda.
Big brain, okay?
And honestly, we kind of lost it. Like every time a song came on, we just like lost our minds because it was so exciting that they included the music that they did. They made some really good song selections, some songs that are very rare within Disney Parks canon. So I was really happy. Don't watch it on the internet if you haven't already. Give it a shot, see it in person if you can. It's so much better in person. That's kind of my general review of Harmonious. I'm about to get into some spoilery stuff. So if you haven't seen the show and you don't want to be spoiled, now's a good time to click away. So thanks for watching. But for those of you who are sticking around, let's talk about the specific songs because they make me want to dance. Oh my God. So my camera decided to cut out while I was in the middle of recording. So enjoy some B-roll while I talk. The first segment is a mixture of songs from Lion King, Frozen, Hercules, Moana, and even a little bit of Hunchback, which I think is great because it's kind of a thread throughout the show. The show doesn't have a theme song in it, which I think is kind of a weak point to it. And this section also has very few fireworks. So in my opinion, it's one of the weakest in the show. But there are some tributes to illuminations, like the pavilions lighting up, which is nice. So overall, it's okay, but I don't love it. A few other just fun things about this segment, I guess. The Moana voice almost sounds like Sia, which I think is really weird. I'm really glad that they were able to get Hercules in this show. It's sorely missed over at Magic Kingdom now that Happily Ever After is gone. But what I think is really interesting is at the end of the Moana and Hercules section, the underscoring almost sounds like Bells of Notre Dame, and it's slightly different, so I can't say for sure that it is. But I like the concept that Hunchback is the theme song for the show. I think that's great. Next up, you have the Aladdin section, which I think is actually really good. They chose Arabian Nights for the song, and that one is pretty rare, but it's a really great version of the song. It's a really fun time. And I think it's silly, but they did it twice in this show where they had the live action genie dancing, which stop with the live action remakes and stop pushing them. No one likes them. It could have just been normal genie, but no, you had to ruin it. Next up is the Jungle Book section, which is surprisingly one of my favorite segments in the whole show. I'm not a big Jungle Book fan, but this version of I Want to Be Like You is just so fun, and it has a really great transition from the Aladdin section. So honestly, 10 out of 10 for this section. I really like it. The next segment is Mulan, which I think has some really big highs and some really big lows. I really like that they chose Reflection for the main song in this section because Reflection is such a good song, but there's very few fireworks and it's kind of boring visually. They do have some of my favorite work with the barges in this section with Mulan and Ping and showing the two different sides to Mulan. And also they have the English version and the Chinese version of Mulan singing in harmony, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And there's also a war section in the middle that always gets some big applause because there's lots of fireworks and it's really great. So overall, this section is on the lower side, but it's still really good. And this is another example of the live action making an appearance where it should not be. She shows up at the end and I hate it. The next section in the show is The Lion King, and I think this section is fantastic. The music choices are amazing and it just makes you want to dance. And also the key change in Can You Feel the Love Tonight gives me life every single time. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for Lion King, which you should expect because this movie has one of the best Disney scores and also it's a classic. So if it had a bad section, it would be a crime. This next section is one of my absolute favorites in the entire show, and it's the French section. It starts out with the prologue from Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my favorite Disney instrumental pieces, so I'm so glad that it's getting some love. And then it transitions into Hunchback of Notre Dame with Out There, and it's just so good, and I love this section, and they really did that. They really went there. So yeah, this section just makes me so happy. 10 out of 10. The next section is Brave, and I feel like this section is really underrated. Honestly, I don't think about it a lot. It kind of flies under the radar. It was pointed out to me by my roommate that it would be much better if they had woven Kingdom Dance from Tangled into this section. I know they're two different countries, but that would have been amazing because the way that it's orchestrated, it would work really well. And I think that would have made it a little bit more interesting, but still, this is a good section. Doesn't quite live up to the others, but it's still very good. The next section is Mexico, and this is objectively probably the best section in the show. It is fantastic to see Coco and Saludos Amigos, and it's so good. I also just love this section because there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people that visit the Disney parks, and every time I see this show, I look around and they're always really excited to hear Spanish being spoken in a Disney show, and that just makes me so happy that this show could include people like that. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for the Mexico section. It makes me want to dance, and it's amazing. The next section is Princess and the Frog for America, and I have a love-hate relationship with this segment. On one hand, I love Tiana. She's probably my favorite princess, and I love the music in Princess and the Frog. It's underrated for sure. But this section just keeps going and going and going. And it's not that it's bad, it just never ends. And there's a really neat place midway through this section that they could have just chopped the music and put a theme song to this show to bookend it. And they didn't do that. Instead, they had like 5 minutes of Princess and the Frog. And as much as I love this movie, it's just too much. The very last section in the show is Someday from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And if you've never heard of this song, there's a pretty good reason for it. It was cut from the movie because it was deemed too sad, and it was added back for the musical version of the show, which I'm very familiar with. So when this song came on in the park, I started crying immediately because this song means a lot to me. It's a really good song, and if you don't know the story behind it, basically, it's a duet between Esmeralda and Phoebus, and the sentiment of the song is, I know that I personally am not going to be able to fix the world, but I hope in the future that it becomes a better place, and I can die with the hope of the future in my heart. It's a pretty dark song to put into a Disney movie, so I understand why they cut it, but they added it back, and I'm so glad that they did. But it's still a very obscure song, so I was shocked when I heard it playing, and I literally started crying in the middle of Epcot. And it's always funny to me, every time I see this show, there's always that one person who thinks that they know every single Disney song, and they're singing along to every song and really having a good time, and then Someday comes on and they don't know it because they haven't listened to the musical version of Hunchback. I like that they don't know it. One, because it makes me feel superior, and two, because it makes them stop and actually listen to the lyrics, because they're important. And if you look at Epcot and what its belief is, what the purpose of Epcot was supposed to be, was something for the future to push the world in a brighter direction. Disney Imagineering really looked at the core of Epcot and the core of Someday and said, yeah, these are the same, and then put them in a show. And they're right. What's more Epcot than the promise of the future and the hope that future generations will make the world a better place? A lot of people have criticized the ending of Harmonious, saying that it was really abrupt and that it didn't really flow with the rest of the show, but I disagree. I think it is Epcot at its best, and I think it's Disney at its best, and I think Harmonious is great. So this has kind of been my rant about Harmonious. Honestly, even the post show is good. I just love Harmonious, and I know it has its flaws, but it's my favorite now, man. While Fantasmic's not running, Happily Ever After's gone. Lord knows what's going on with Animal Kingdom. At least I have Harmonious. It's so good. Thank you for watching my TED Talk. I put out new videos every Friday. Make sure to subscribe for that. If you have any video suggestions, leave them down below. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye!